the blueprint for 9/11, if you that way inclined, or to look at it at least, Operation Northwoods was conceived many decades before the 90s. Right? In fact, Operation Northwoods goes back right to the early 1960s. Right? And the idea was to have passenger planes crash and blame it on Cuba and Castro. That was the CIA's plan, and which would then lead to a shift in the public sentiment in the United States, and would allow for an intervention, an official intervention, not like the Bay of Pigs intervention, but an official intervention of the United States into Cuba. And just for the historically minded, the Bay of Pigs was a covert operation that was supported and financed by the CIA, as well as Cuban exiles living in Florida, which, as we all know now, of course, it went catastrophically wrong. But it's true. It's true. It's not a hoax. It's an actual operation. It was never put into action, but it was definitely part of the planning stages, and it was a false flag operation.
Did you know that was turned into a movie?
Oh, was it? I didn't know that. No.
Oh yeah.
Oh, cool.
I'll advise you the title of the movie.
Oh, please.
But they turned it into people emerging from a bunker, just discovering that the world was a different place.
Oh, really? I'd love to see that.
Yeah.
To let me know what it is. I love these alternative history books as well as movies. I eat them up because I keep shifting.
Stop shifting.
Okay, thank you. Okay, yes, sir.
You're killing me.
Stop breathing.
It's like your retort is, you think I can help it?
Exactly right. It's an inside joke. If you listen to the show, you've probably been aware that I believe that I've shifted a number of times. Not massive shifts. Some have been bigger than others, but definitely shifts, because I can't explain in any other sensible way some of the things that have happened or seem to have happened. Except, I'm suffering from some kind of a fugue-like delusion, and need to be hospitalized.
And I get hurt for some reason.
Yeah, he gets always worse off every time.
That's right.
He's just worse off. Because we've known each other for a long time, and you would have thought that in that time that we've known each other, which is now actually exceeded 20 years, certain things would have come up, certain pertinent things, because we share them, as well. But no, sometimes this new stuff comes up because, Dave goes, I've had this for all my life. Really? Why have we never talked about it?
That's right.
Okay. But no, look, that's beside the point, though. But yeah, so you can argue that the blueprint for 9/11 was I guess late or thought of or thought up back in the 60s by the CIA and their planners there, analysts. You can take it back further as well, of course. When we started dividing the Middle East after World War I, that was a big mistake, but you can find some of the blame there. But you can take it even further back, when the banking system was first given the power that it has today, and we're talking about the 17th, 18th, and 19th centuries here, where the banks, the privately owned banks, obviously, really wrested the power from the sovereign, king, queen, whatever, or even the people in certain circumstances, certainly in the United States, and took the true power in the nation for themselves. The true power. Because I want to ask one more question, then I'll let it rest and go into the 9/11 topic. But have you ever asked yourself where the government goes to get its money printed? And more than that, where do those people get that money from? Because the thing is this,
who are those people? Yeah.
Who are those people? We talk about government debt. I mean, everybody, and nobody questions it. It's just part of life. Oh, you're government debt. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, what? So the government goes to somebody, clearly, right? and borrows money.
Yep.
Right? So this entity, this organization, these people, whoever they are, have enormous amounts of money.
And they're not government, they're private.
They're private. Now, that's actually a fallacy. So some people say, oh, no, it's all the pension funds and it's this and that. No, that's nonsense. Because these people print money.
Mm-hmm.
So the question becomes, then where does it come from? I mean, by what authority do they print this money? Well, the answer is the government has a little piece of paper called a bond. It could be something else in other, in other countries, treasury bonds. It could be anything, really, right? Government bonds, whatever. But this bond says that Mr. Money Printer, please print me $1 trillion, and I owe you now $1 trillion. Now, this is a complete nonsense, of course, because...
But that happened in Australia in 2020.
But
$1 trillion.
But the point is that the money printers don't have $1 trillion to give away. They don't have it. It doesn't exist. But the government, by this bond decree now, has created it out of thin air. But the thing, again, why are we paying it? Why is the government now in debt to the money printer? Think about that for a second. Now, they will try to confuse you with a whole bunch of jargon and technicalities, but the simple truth is this. Fiat currency, fractional reserve lending, and the entire banking system, as we know it today, is the biggest crime that has ever been committed against the humans, humanity, if you want, ever. And there are economists that are saying this. The economists have said this, and they're not. I mean, in fact, anybody that is half smart and looks at the setup knows that this is the biggest crime that was ever committed, the biggest con, the biggest scheme, the biggest racket of all time, because we are creating money out of nothing, and then the government owes these entities that money that came from nowhere.
That's perfect.
And it actually drives you. And people say, oh, that can't be right, Mackie. That sounds crazy. It cannot be true, Mackie. And I'm here to tell you, it absolutely is. That is exactly how it works.
If it were real money, imagine the building that it would be contained within. It's insane, but it isn't real. None of it's real.
It isn't. And in fact, it's all a Mummenschanz, a mama's farce, if you will, when you look at 2008. The system collapsed. It actually collapsed because of greed and fraud. That's what collapsed it. And it doesn't take much research to actually understand what happened. It is, again, it's really, really simple. They try to complicate it and, flim-flam people, but if you just sit down and think about it, and we'll actually, Dave, I think we'll have to have another one of those coming up soon. We will take you through it again and explain it. It's really simple and straightforward. Greed and fraud is what collapsed the economies in 2008. But it was allowed to persist. No.
And what was the defibrillator again? Oh, that's right. The government just gave the banks money.
Yeah, there you go. Oh, well, thank you, Bob. No problem, George.
Thanks for not ruining your entire country.
See you at the club on the weekend. Yeah, see you at the club.
And then what did the banks do with all the money?
They made the world a better place.
No, the other one. They gave all the execs bonuses for keeping the bank alive.
See,
with the money that they got.
The thing is this, though, and this is, people don't realize this.
Had money fights.
A lot of people have mortgages or loans or credit card debt or whatever. They owe banks. They owe banks money, right? That's what happens in the world. But hundreds of billions of dollars were given globally, or trillions, who knows, trillions, were given to the banks, taxpayer money. So that's your money that you've paid the government. You've given the government money to look after the society and look after you. And the government then went and gave that money to the bankers, whom you owe money to. So what should have happened, and I'm not being flippant, this is not meant to be funny, what should have happened is that your debts should be forgiven, because we have more than paid back all the debts that the banks hold against us. Okay, if you accept the system, it is complete and utter insanity. And I'm not going to drive my car for a couple of days just to be safe. It is unbelievable.
Yeah.
That we all just okay. Because you know why? Because we have been born into the system. And a lot of us, and this is not, I don't want to rag on anyone. This is not an accusation, because it's really hard to ask these questions and actually to even think that a question could be asked. But the point is that nobody is asking these questions, or nobody that could make a difference. So Dave and I, we ask the questions, we explain to people what it looks like, whoop-de-doo. The people, and this is really the beauty of the system, the people that understand the system, right, they have no interest in changing it, obviously. They set it up. And then there are other people that are not part of the system, but they're still benefiting from it.
Oh, they're the leeches that work around the periphery, yeah.
And they understand it quite well, thank you very much, but they also have no interest in changing it.
In changing it, yes.
Yeah, and most people don't really understand it fully. Even people that work in banks or financial institutions, even in government or taxation, they don't fully understand how it all hangs together. And it doesn't actually hang together at all. It's a complete illusion. But it's an illusion that is kept up by everybody. So this is like the emperor's new clothes.
You're really not driving your car now for a while. So
the emperor is a what's the word? A very self-conscious individual, and he's quite proud, and he likes to dress well, etc., etc. And then these con artists, these bankers come along, and he goes, "Hey, we've got this amazing new fabric. Here it is. Only the smartest people can see it." And the king goes, "Oh, what a lovely fabric that is!" And of course, it's nothing. There's nothing. It's
There's
zero,
nothing there.
Right? It doesn't exist.
That's right.
It's hot air, and they then they go ahead and fashion, which is just like the banking system. They go ahead and fashion dresses for the king out of nothing. Here it is, and the king, proceeds to walk around naked. And the thing is this. Because, and this is the genius of it, this is social engineering, because these con artists said only the smartest people can see the fabric, and nobody wants to be a fool or a stupid person, they all say, "Oh, what a magnificent fabric, what a magnificent dress, your majesty, what wonderful clothes you have," okay? And so it goes on, right? Until I think it's a child that breaks the spell.
Yeah.
Because the emperor is naked. What? He's naked, he's not wearing anything, right? And it's sort of, I can't remember the end of it, but I think it all collapses. But the point is, we don't have that child living today. Hey, Acid Trip, how are you, buddy? We don't have that child living here and pointing out. Oh, actually, Dave and I guess, we had the child. We're pointing to the emperor that's naked, and that's what's happening. It's exactly the same thing. And I wonder, Dave, I wonder if somebody didn't tell that story to tell this story.
Yeah, that's right. I know. I have wondered often about that as well. Yeah,
because it is exactly the same. There's no difference whatsoever. So here we are living in complete illusion. Now the thing is this, and I admit this, because you have to be fair about these things. If we were to make changes, and if the system truly collapsed, people would suffer. Simply because the system has become live now, right? But something better could exist. This system is not what we deserve or should have. Something better must exist. But look, sorry, Dave. Any thoughts on that before we get into the text?
Oh no, I love driving my car, and I love the leader and the AI.
I love the bankers. 1991 to 1997, oil investment in Central Asia follows Soviet collapse. So you have to understand that the Soviet Union was a satellite empire, similar to China. What does it mean? So you had, not a continental empire. The British Empire was a satellite empire. So what that means is that both Russia and China expand their borders. They don't go elsewhere, right? They don't go over to Africa or South America or whatever and form colonies, satellites as it were, but they rather expand the borders they have, which is what Putin is doing today. He wants to get the Ukraine back into Russia, because it's a neighboring country. So all the other neighboring countries around Russia are a bit nervous, because that's what Russia has been doing. Well, that's what it did traditionally, has been doing it for hundreds of years, right? But when the Soviet Union collapsed, a lot of these former Soviet states are all of a sudden free, in a manner of speaking, right? So Kazakhstan, Afghanistan, Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, etc., they're all of a sudden no longer part of the Soviet Union, because it no longer exists. But what they do have are massive gas and oil reserves in Central Asia. So The Soviet Union collapsed in 1991, creating several new nations in Central Asia, as we've just said. Major US oil companies, including ExxonMobil, Texaco, Unocal, BP Amoco, Shell, and Enron directly invest billions in these Central Asian nations, bribing heads of state to secure equity rights in the huge oil reserves in these regions. The oil companies commit to $35 billion, this is in 1991, in future direct investments in Kazakhstan. That's a lot of money back then. It is believed at the time that these oil fields will have an estimated $6 trillion potential value. $6 trillion! US companies own approximately 75% of the rights. These companies, however, face the problem of having to pay exorbitant prices to Russia for the use of the Russian pipelines to get the oil out. And the source here is the New Yorker, as well as Asia Times from 2001 and 2002. Dave?
November 1993, Enron power plant creates demand for Afghanistan pipeline. Is it Dabhol? Dabhol power plant. This is the source, is the Enron, the Indian government approves construction of Enron's Dabhol power plant, located near Mumbai, in Bombay, on the west coast of India. Enron has invested $3 billion, the largest single foreign investment in India's history. Enron owns 65% of the Dabhol liquefied natural gas, or you might know it as an acronym LNG, power plant, intended to provide 1/5 of India's energy needs by 1997. That's 4 years after, that's the plan. It is the largest gas-fired power plant in the world. Earlier in the year, the World Bank concluded that the plant was not economically viable and refused to invest in it. New York Times. That's the 20th of March 2001. Other sources there are the Indian Express at the 27th of February 2000 and the Asia Times 18th of January 2001.
Correct. 1994 to 1997. So this is a period of time just after the US supports the Taliban rise to power. Okay? No, that never happened. So it's a lie. It's a lie. Journalist Ahmed Rashid, a long-time expert on Pakistan and Afghanistan, will later write in a book about the Taliban that the US supported the Taliban in its early years. Now I'm quoting here from the book. Between 1994 and 1996, the USA supported the Taliban politically through its allies Pakistan and Saudi Arabia, essentially because Washington viewed the Taliban as anti-Iranian, anti-Shia, and pro-Western. Between 1995 and 1997, US support was even more driven because of its backing for the Unocal pipeline project. He notes that many US diplomats saw them as messianic do-gooders, like born-again Christians from the American Bible Belt. And the source here is Dreyfus 2005, pages 326 and following. Now, just very quickly, this is actually really important to understand. Christians, especially born-again Christians, fundamentalist born-again Christians of the messianic type, are actively working toward Armageddon. What does Mackey mean by that? What Mackey means by that is they're actively working in Israel to get the Palestinians and the Israelis to fight, to bring them to the final battle. That is their game. That's the end game, because they want to initiate the second coming of Christ. Now, before I get on with the text, it's really important to understand this, because it's really hard to understand Middle Eastern politics if you don't understand this. There are people out there that really believe in whatever religion they have. They really believe.
Oh, yeah.
And and they believe. So born-again Christians, or what do they call them? There's another word. Not Pentecostal. Doesn't matter.
Revivalists.
These Christians believe that Jesus was, of course, the Son of God, and therefore the Messiah, right? And it was prophesied the second coming of Christ. But what has to happen before that is the Battle of Megiddo. Megiddo is a place in Israel, believe it or not. It's a plain, and it's what was referred to as Armageddon. It's Megiddo, and there has to be a battle between the forces of Satan and the forces of good, etc., etc.
And the original owner must inhabit the Temple Mount.
Correct. So the fundamentalist Christians are working hand in glove with the fundamentalist or Zionists, the fundamentalist religious Jews, but they're also working hand in glove with the fundamentalist Islamists, right? Because they're all driving toward the same truck.
Oh, yeah.
They're all driving toward the same precipice, which leads to the abyss, which is it'll we will all fall off into the kingdom of God, as they see it. Because the second coming of Christ is good. The Jews are waiting for the first coming of the Messiah, which is also around the corner, and then
in fact, they've just announced it.
Yeah, that's right.
Did you hear that this week?
No, I hadn't.
Yeah, they just announced this young boy is the new Messiah.
Well, that's disturbing. That's not good.
End times, woohoo!
Hurrah.
I'm waiting for the four horsemen. What's that? The trumpets?
The four horsemen. The trumpets. It's the four trumpets of what was it called?
Yeah, I'm waiting for that. Yeah, I got tickets.
He brought the seventh seal across the sea, and the sea turned to blood. Right. And the number of the counting shall be 5, not 7 or 6 or 4, but 5.
3. And the number of the counting shall be 3. No more, no less.
No more, no less. And he shall take a pound of flesh. But and of course, the Muslims are also happy to ascend to heaven and do what they need to do. So
there's no shame on their side here. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of people though that are waiting for the end times, and not just waiting for the end times, but they're working actively towards us. No, right. No. So the Jericho is a very specific. Acid Trip just said Jericho. In Jericho had a city wall, and it was brought down by a trumpet. What Dave was talking about are the trumpets that are sounding at the end of time, or the end
that signal each of the phases.
Yep. Correct. As we descend into our doom. Yeah, but Jericho the walls of Jericho were brought down by sonic weapons.
That's right.
As I'm concerned.
Yeah.
But that's a whole different show. So that's that. You need to understand that these people are fervently working toward the end of the world. You have to understand it. If you don't understand this, most of what happens in the world makes no sense to you. But they actually are. They are hoping that there will be war in the Middle East, and that Jesus, will come down and take them all to heaven. But that's really important. So, okay, let's go back to the text.
But we still have the tribulations to get through, yeah.
Correct. In the 1,000 years of Satan's rule, etc.
Okay.
Zelig Harrison, a longtime regional expert with extensive CIA ties, will later say that he complained at the time about how Pakistani ISI support of the Taliban was backed by the CIA. Now, the ISI is Pakistan's CIA equivalent, if you will. Internal security, I think, or something like that. I warned them, I'm quoting here, I warned them that we were creating a monster. Okay, so this Harrison guy was the expert, warned the CIA when they supported the Taliban, you are creating a monster. And this is the source here is Times of India, July 3, 2001. There's evidence, in fact, I'm quoting again, there's evidence the CIA may have helped supply the Taliban with weapons during the first months of their rise to power. There's another source here which links back to October 1994 as well, and I'm just bringing it up so I can. It's from the historycommons.org. But Dave, why don't you go ahead?
Oh, I'll continue. So 1995, it was a very good year. November 2001, US lobbies India over Enron power plant. Enron's $3 billion Dabhol India power plant runs into trouble in 1995 when the Indian government temporarily cancels an agreement. The plant, I'll get it all right, put my teeth back in. The plant is projected to get its energy from the proposed Afghan pipeline and deliver it to the Indian government. Enron leader Ken Lay travels to India with Commerce Secretary Ron Brown the same year, and heavy lobbying by US officials continue in subsequent years. By the summer of 2001, the National Security Council leads a dub hole working group with officials from various cabinet agencies to get the plant completed and functioning. US pressure on India intensifies until shortly before Enron files for bankruptcy in December 2001. US officials later claimed their lobbying merely supported the $640 million of US government investment in the plant, but critics say the plant received unusually strong support under both the Clinton and Bush administrations. This comes from New York Daily News and the Washington Post around 2002 in January, late January.
Yep.
Mekki, as we know, that you can see that the lobbying was an attempt to keep Enron alive.
Of course.
The last desperate pushes to keep it alive before suddenly, too big to fail. We failed. We have no money. No, it was all a scam. We've been hollowed out a long time ago. This was our last bastion.
That's right. Just as an interesting aside here, the links that we used, some of these links.
Go on, buddy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got a hard copy. That's all I can say.
Yeah, that's right.
Problem loading page. Historycommons.org is taking too long to respond. There you go. That's what happens. Anyway, I got the hard copy. September to October 1995, Unocal obtains Turkmenistan pipeline deal. Oil company Unocal signs an $8 billion deal with Turkmenistan to construct 2 pipelines, one for oil and one for gas, as part of a larger plan for 2 pipelines intended to transport oil and gas from Turkmenistan through Afghanistan and into Pakistan. Before proceeding further, however, Unocal needs to execute agreements with Pakistan and Afghanistan. Pakistan and Ahmed Shah Massoud's government in Afghanistan, however, have already signed a pipeline deal with an Argentinian company. Henry Kissinger, hired as a speaker for a special dinner in New York to announce the Turkmenistan pipeline deal, says the Unocal plan represents a triumph of hope over experience. Unocal will later open an office in Kabul weeks after the Taliban capture of the capital in late 1996 and will interact with the Taliban seeking support for its pipeline until at least December 1997. And there's some book references here, but I can't get them anymore. So it's actually, no, it's not true. I can actually get this one, I think. Anyway, the Ghost Wars. This is a reference to a book, Ghost Wars, The Secret History of the CIA, Afghanistan and Bin Laden, from the Soviet invasion to September 10, 2001, by Steve Coll. If you wanted to look, it's called Ghost Wars, if you wanted to look there for the references here.
So December 1995, the Caspian Sea is said to contain 2/3 of world's known oil reserves. The American Petroleum Institute asserts that the states bordering the Caspian Sea, which are north of Afghanistan, contain 2/3 of the world's known reserves, or 659 billion barrels. Such numbers spur demand for Afghan pipeline. However, by April 1997, estimates dropped to 179 billion barrels. Still a lot, but not the world's largest resource. And that comes from the Middle East Journal. That's the 22nd of September 2000. This is still substantial, but the estimates continue to drop in future years.
Absolutely. 1996 to September 11 of 2001. So this is the 5 years leading up to that event. Enron gives Taliban millions in bribes in efforts to get an Afghan pipeline built. The Associated Press will later report that the Enron Corporation bribes Taliban officials as part of a no-holds-barred bid to strike a deal for an energy pipeline in Afghanistan. Atul Davda, a senior director for Enron's international division, will later claim, I'm quoting here, Enron had intimate contact with Taliban officials. Presumably, this effort began around 1996 when a power plant Enron was building in India, which we talked about, ran into trouble, and Enron began an attempt to supply it with natural gas via a planned pipeline through Afghanistan. In 1997, Enron executives privately meet with Taliban officials in Texas. They are given the red carpet treatment and promised a fortune if the deal goes through. It is alleged Enron secretly employs CIA agents to carry out its dealings overseas. According to a CIA resource, Enron proposed to pay the Taliban large sums of money in a tax on every cubic foot of gas and oil shipped through a pipeline they planned to build. This source claims Enron paid more than $400 million for a feasibility study on the pipeline, and a large portion of that cost was payoffs to the Taliban. Enron continues to encourage the Taliban about the pipeline even after Unocal officially gives up on the pipeline in the wake of the African embassy bombings. You might remember this in 1998. An investigation after Enron's collapse in 2001 will determine that some of this payoff money ended up funding Al-Qaeda. Associated Press, July 3, 2002.
Yes. May 1996, US seeks stability in Afghanistan for Unocal pipeline. Robin Raphael, source Mark Wilson, agents France Press, Robin Raphael, Deputy Secretary of State for South Asia, speaks to the Russian Deputy Foreign Minister about Afghanistan. She says that the US government, quotes, now hopes that peace in the region will facilitate US business interests, such as the proposed Unocal gas pipeline from Turkmenistan through Afghanistan to Pakistan. And that's the same document, the Cole 2004, page 330.
June 24, 1996, Uzbekistan cuts a deal with Enron. Uzbekistan signs a deal with Enron that could lead to joint development of the Central Asian nation's potentially rich natural gas fields. Houston Chronicle, 25th June 1996. The $1.3 billion venture teams Enron with the state companies of Russia and Uzbekistan. Houston Chronicle, 30th of June 1996. On July 8, 1996, the US government agrees to give $400 million to help Enron and an Uzbek state company develop these natural gas fields. Oil and Gas Journal, 8th of July 1996.
August 13th, 1996, Unocal Delta Oil Plan Afghan pipeline. Unocal and Delta Oil of Saudi Arabia reach agreement with state companies in Turkmenistan and Russia to build a natural gas pipeline from Turkmenistan to Pakistan via Afghanistan. The agreement is finalized in 1997. This comes from Unocal themselves, 1996, the 13th of, August.
After September 1996, journalists sees US and Taliban combating Russia over Central Asian pipeline issues. Ahmed Rashid, sources Jane Scher, University of California, Berkeley. Ahmed Rashid, correspondent for the Far Eastern Economic Review and the Daily Telegraph, conducts extensive investigative research in Afghanistan after the Taliban conquest of Kabul. As he will later write in his 2000 book, Taliban, Militant Islam, Oil and Fundamentalism in Central Asia, he sees a massive regional polarization between the USA, Saudi Arabia, Pakistan, and the Taliban on one side, and Russia, the Central Asian states, and the anti-Taliban alliance on the other. While some focused on whether there was a revival of the old CIA-ISI connection from the Afghan jihad era, it became apparent to me, this is Ahmed Rashid talking, it became apparent to me that the strategy over pipelines had become the driving force behind Washington's interest in the Taliban, which in turn was prompting a counter-reaction from Russia and Iran. But exploring this was like entering a labyrinth, where nobody spoke the truth or divulged their real motives or interests. It was the job of a detective rather than a journalist, because there were few clues. Even gaining access to the real players in the game was difficult, because policy was not being driven by politicians and diplomats, but by the secretive oil companies and intelligence services of the regional states. This is from the book that Rashid published in 2001, page 163.
September 27, 1996, victorious Taliban supported by Pakistan, viewed by US Unicol as stabilizing force. That's really telling. Taliban forces conquering Afghanistan. This is the Bandit Artists Productions, The Taliban Conquer Kabul, Associated Press, 2002. Establishing control over much of Afghanistan. A surge in the Taliban's military success at this time is later attributed to an increase in direct military assistance from Pakistan's ISI. That was New York Times, 2001. This is the 8th of December. The oil company Unicol is hopeful that the Taliban will stabilize Afghanistan and allow its pipeline plans to go forward. According to some reports, preliminary agreement on the pipeline, that is, was reached over the Taliban and Unicol long before the fall of Kabul. Oil industry insiders say the dream of securing a pipeline across Afghanistan is the main reason why Pakistan, a close political ally of America's, has been so supportive of the Taliban, and why America has quietly acquiesced in its conquest of Afghanistan. Daily Telegraph, 1996, the 11th of October. The 9/11 Commission later concludes that some State Department diplomats are willing to give the Taliban a chance because it might be able to bring stability to Afghanistan, which would allow a Unicol oil pipeline to be built through the country. 9/11 Commission, 2004.
October 7th, 1996. Future Bush envoy to Afghanistan wants US to help Taliban unify country build pipeline. In a Washington Post opinion editorial, Zalmay Khalilzad calls on the US to deal with the Taliban in Afghanistan. I'm quoting here. It is time for the United States to re-engage. The Taliban does not practice the anti-US style of fundamentalism practiced by Iran. It is closer to the Saudi model. He calls on the US to help the Taliban put Afghanistan on a path towards peace, noting that continuing violence has been a source of regional instability and an obstacle to building pipelines to bring Central Asian oil and gas to Pakistan and the world markets. Sources Washington Post, 7th of October 1996. However, by 2000, Khalilzad will sour on the Taliban. In his speech in March of 2000, he will state, and I'm quoting, Afghanistan was and is a possible corridor for the export of oil and gas from the Central Asian states down to Pakistan and to the world. A California company called Unicol was interested in exploring that option, but because of the war in Afghanistan, because of the instability that's there, those options, or that option at least, has not materialized. The Los Angeles World Affairs Council, 9th of March, 2000.
October 11th, 1996, Afghan pipeline key to one of the great prizes of the 21st century. That is a big call. The Daily Telegraph publishes an interesting article about pipeline politics in Afghanistan. Quoting, behind the tribal clashes that have scarred Afghanistan lies one of the great prizes of the 21st century, the fabulous energy reserves of Central Asia. The deposits are huge, said a diplomat from the region. Kazakhstan alone may have more oil than Saudi Arabia. Turkmenistan is already known to have the 5th largest gas reserves in the world. Daily Telegraph, 11th of October 1996.
August 1997. CIA monitors Central Asia for oil reserves. The CIA creates a secret task force to monitor Central Asia's politics and gauge its wealth. Covert CIA officers, some well-trained petroleum engineers, traveled through southern Russia, Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan, and Turkmenistan to sniff out potential oil reserves. Time, 4th of May, 1998.
October 27th, 1997. Halliburton announces Turkmenistan project. Unocal and Delta Oil form consortium. Halliburton, a company headed by future Vice President Dick Cheney, announces a new agreement to provide technical services and drilling for Turkmenistan. The press release mentions Halliburton, quoting, has been providing a variety of services in Turkmenistan for the past 5 years, unquote. On the same day, a consortium to build a pipeline through Afghanistan is formed. It is called CENTGAS, and the two main partners are Unocal and Delta Oil of Saudi Arabia. This was both published on the same day, 1997, 27th of October, by Halliburton and CENTGAS themselves as a major announcement.
November 1997. Enron and Bin Laden family team up for project. Enron and Bin Laden family team up for project. Right? Just so we get that straight. Industry newsletter reports that Saudi Arabia has abandoned plans for open bids on a $2 billion power plant near Mecca, deciding that the government will build it instead. And interestingly, one of the bids was made by a consortium of Enron, the Saudi Bin Laden group, run by Osama's family, and Italy's Ansaldo Energia. And this was quoted from Alexander's Gas and Oil Connections, 22nd of January, 1998.
All right, now we're on to December 1997. Unocal establishes pipeline training facility near Bin Laden's compound. Thomas Goitier, and this is the source, was the University of Nebraska. Unocal pays University of Nebraska $900,000 to set up a training facility near Osama bin Laden's Kandahar compound to train 400 Afghan teachers, electricians, carpenters, and pipe fitters in anticipation of using them for their pipeline in Afghanistan. 150 students are already attending classes in southern Afghanistan. Unocal is paying University of Nebraska's Professor Thomas Goitier to develop the training program. Goitier travels to Afghanistan and meets with Taliban leaders, and also arranges for some Taliban leaders to visit the US around this time. This we'll see December 4th, 1997. Daily Telegraph, the source was the 14th of December 1997, and also from the book Cole, authored 2004, pages 364. It will later be revealed that the CIA paid Goitier to head a program at the University of Nebraska that created textbooks for Afghanistan promoting violence and jihad. Now, we should see 1984 to 1994. Goitier will continue to work with the Taliban after Unocal officially cuts off ties with them. For instance, he will host some Taliban leaders visiting the US in 1999. Wow. I knew that they gave them false passports and got those people over.
Yeah.
Wow.
I know. December 4th, it's crazy. 1997. Taliban representatives visit Unicall in Texas. Taliban representatives in Texas, 1997. Source: Lionsgate Films. Representatives of the Taliban are invited guests to the Texas headquarters of Unicall to negotiate their support for the pipeline. Future President George W. Bush is governor of Texas at the time. The Taliban appeared to agree to a $2 billion pipeline deal, but will do the deal only if the US officially recognizes the Taliban regime. The Taliban meet with US officials. According to the Daily Telegraph, and I'm quoting, the US government, which in the past has branded the Taliban's policies against women and children despicable, appears anxious to please the fundamentalists to clinch the lucrative pipeline contract, end quote. A BBC regional correspondent says that, and I'm quoting, the proposal to build a pipeline across Afghanistan is part of an international scramble to profit from developing the rich energy resources in the Caspian Sea, end quote. BBC, 4th of December 1997, Daily Telegraph, also 14th of December 1997. It has been claimed that the Taliban meet with Enron officials while in Texas. Enron, headquartered in Texas, has a large financial interest in the pipeline at the time. The Taliban also visit Thomas Gauthier, an academic at the University of Nebraska, who is a consultant for Unicall and has also been paid by the CIA for his work in Afghanistan. Gauthier takes them off to visit Mount Rushmore.
Wow. All right, 10:35 to 10:39 a.m., August 7th, 1998. Al-Qaeda bombs US embassies in Kenya and Tanzania, killing over 200. Bombings of the Nairobi, Kenya US embassy and the Dar es Salaam, Tanzania US embassy. The source was the Associated Press. 2 US embassies in Africa are bombed within minutes of each other. At 10:35 local time, a suicide car bomb attack in Nairobi, Kenya, kills 213 people, including 12 US nationals, and injures more than 4,500. Yeah, that's a full stop. Mohammed al-Hali and someone known as Azam are the suicide bombers, but al-Hali runs away at the last minute and survives. He's just the driver. 4 minutes later, a suicide car bomb attack in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, kills 11 and injures 85. The attacks are blamed on Al-Qaeda. Hamdan Khalif Allah Awad is the suicide bomber there. PBS Frontline 2001. There's also many other statements here. US States of America versus Osama bin Laden, and all day 38. It was read in 2001 and the 2nd of May. The Tanzania death toll is low because, remarkably, the attack takes place on a national holiday, so the US embassy there is closed. Miller, Stone and Mitchell, 2002, page 195. The attack shows Al-Qaeda has capability for simultaneous attacks. It sounds like a CIA quote. The Tanzania bombing appears to have been a late addition, as one of the arrested bombers allegedly told US agents that it was added to the plot only about 10 days in advance. It also comes from the same Osama bin Laden et al., day 14 from 2001, 7th of March. A third attack against a US embassy in Uganda does not take place due to a last-minute delay. Associated Press, 1998, 25th of September. August 7th, 1998 is the 8th anniversary of the arrival of US troops in Saudi Arabia, and some speculate that is the reason for the date of the bombings. Gunaratna, 2003, page 46, quoting, In the 2002 book The Cell, reporters John Miller, Michael Stone, and Chris Miller will write, quoting, "What has become clear with time is the facts of the East Africa plot had been known beforehand to the FBI and the CIA, and also the State Department, and to Israeli and Kenyan intelligence services. No one can seriously argue," sorry, there's a bit of a gap, and it says, "No one can seriously argue that the horrors of August 7th, 1998 couldn't have been prevented," end quote. They will also comment, quote, inexplicable as the intelligence failure was, more baffling still was that Al-Qaeda correctly presumed that a major attack could be carried out by a cell that US agents had already uncovered. Very interesting. After 9/11, it will come to light that 3 of the alleged hijackers, Khalid, well, boy, I hate pronouncing all of these, they're too hard for me, Nawaf and Salem, had some involvement in these bombings, and that the US intelligence community was aware of this involvement by late 1999, if not before.
That's nuts. That's nuts.
Yeah.
On August 9, 1998, Northern Alliance stronghold conquered by Taliban. Pipeline project now looks promising. The Northern Alliance capital, Afghanistan, Mazar-i-Sharif, is conquered by the Taliban. Military support of Pakistan's ISI plays a large role. There's even an intercept of an ISI officer stating, quoting, "My boys and I are riding into Mazar-i-Sharif." And the source here is New York Times, December 8th, 2001. This victory gives the Taliban control of 90% of Afghanistan, including the entire proposed pipeline route. Sand gas. The consortium behind the gas pipeline that would run through Afghanistan is now ready to proceed. Its main partners are the American oil firm Unocal and Delta Oil of Saudi Arabia, plus Hyundai of South Korea, 2 Japanese companies, a Pakistani conglomerate, and the Turkmen government. Now, not Turkish, but Turkmen as Turkmenistan. However, the pipeline cannot be financed unless the government is officially recognized. Diplomatic sources said the Taliban's offensive was well prepared and deliberately scheduled 2 months ahead of the next UN meeting, where members are to decide whether the Taliban should be recognized. Daily Telegraph, 30th of August, 1998.
Okay, probably the last we'll get through, this next
Yes.
one. August 20th, 1998. US fires on Al-Qaeda Afghan training camps, Sudanese facility. El Shifa plant in Sudan. The source here is the US government. The US fires 66 missiles at 6 Al-Qaeda training camps in Afghanistan and 13 missiles at a pharmaceutical factory in Khartoum, Sudan, in retaliation for the US embassy bombings. This comes from the Washington Post, 2001, the 3rd of October. The US insists the attacks are aimed at terrorists, not supported by any state, despite obvious evidence to the contrary. The Sudanese Al Shifa factory is hit in the middle of the night when it is unoccupied. Intelligence will later suggest that the factory had no links to bin Laden. Between 6 and 30 people are killed in Afghanistan attacks, but no important Al-Qaeda figures die. Comes from the Observer, 1998, 23rd of August. Also the New Yorker and the Right. At least one of the missiles accidentally landed in Pakistan, and Pakistan may have been able to build their own cruise missile from examining the remains. There's a leak of tech. There are additional reports that bin Laden was able to sell unexploded missiles to China for more than $10 million. President Clinton is soon widely accused of using the missile attack to distract the US public from a personal sex scandal. Oh my goodness, that's right. So this comes from Wright 2006, page 285, and also there's a reference to August 17, late August 1998. And that should be the end, Becky. We should get 1 minute.
It is. Just one quick thing. Now, we actually, we took this off the historycommons.org website, which no longer seems to exist. I've just pasted a link there for you, and I think we're going to share what's on the link with our readership.
There's the music.
There's the music. Thanks, guys.
This has been yet another Shiny Side Out, episode 557, second half. Stay tuned for Jer Bear and his awesome show After Hours. Do call in. Join us during the week on Tuesday morning and Thursday morning, Kentucky time, Eastern, for breakfast with Plato's Cave. And we'll see you next Sunday as well. Take care, everyone.